a little unit.
Sorry, you were teaching this morning? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I'm instructor in Ukrainian army. Well, till now, not so official, just letter from my command, and I teach this guy. But
So you're a
this thing,
firearms instructor right now. You're a firearms instructor in Ukraine. You're teaching
I,
Ukrainian forces.
I'm firearm tactical medicine. Uh, I don't know. Everything includes instructors. So
Yeah.
mostly is a firearm and tactics. So I have not only me, but my friends also have a couple of questions. So I want to discuss with you
Sure.
about that. And when people know that I connect with you, the first question was, uh, "Are Jeff Chen from MMH Reddit as so cool as he looks in his video?"
Yeah, he is. He's a good dude. Yeah, he is. That's funny. Yeah, he's good. He's good and he's a great guy. Yeah, Jeff Chan is a great guy. And yeah, I've known him for a long time. So him and I have trained together for, oh man, I think since 2007, 2008. Yeah.
Okay. So we in Ukraine we know almost everything about the Chen, and now we more dealing and with you. So
Amazing. That's
uh,
funny.
so so there are first question. We have different techniques, different even tactics. And how do you think what the first and second things, why we choose one thing or another? Because when I was young guy, uh, when I shoot it from the pistol, everyone say shoot with one hand,
Right.
and then we uh, we meet with the Weaver stance and then Isophil stance, and every time people who show me this one say it's the best thing in the world. So how do you think what the main thing in into the choosing the technique or tactic of firearm is?
For pistol specific, Weaver stance was around a long time ago, and it had its place and it had its application for sure. Um, the way I look at pistol shooting from a combative perspective, even for perspective, like some things that are translatable from sport into the tactical world of pistol shooting, I think they complement each other. The biggest difference between sport shooting and tactical shooting is tactical shooting, there's an element of decision making that is really important, where sport shooting, the only decision they need to make is what order they're going to shoot the stage in, right? So there's a big difference with making a decision from a sport shooter than a tactical shooter because the consequences are different. But when it comes to the fundamentals of applying grip, alignment, trigger manipulation, those fundamentals will be the same no matter it's sport shooting or tactical shooting. So when people are shooting single hand or with two hands on the gun, typically what I'll try to share with guys is grip the gun like you mean it, whether it's with your, support hand or your dominant hand or with two hands on the gun. Grip the gun like you mean it, but not so strong that you're shaking, not so strong that your entire muscle structure is shaken. So with a two-handed shooting platform, what I would encourage guys to do is get your body as square to the target as to the threat as possible, as if we had a laser shooting from our belt buckle. And if we had a laser shooting from our belt buckle, we want that laser tracking the target, tracking the threat. And
Okay.
from a tactical perspective, if we're wearing body armor, that's going to present most of the body armor towards the danger. But more importantly, it's going to get our ability to get the shots on target a lot quicker, a lot sooner because of our alignment. So it's not just front sight, rear sight. In a tactical, combative operational context, you may not even see your sights. So if the grip is established, if the shoulders and the hips are as square as possible, then we can present the gun with efficiency to get on target. That's the way I look at it.
So, I'm not the smartest guy, but did you agree if I would say that first of all, it's the safety for choosing the techniques? Second one, it's your body nature. If you in stressful situation, you standing like a scary monkey, and you don't close your second eye, and you came shoulders on, and you got crunched. If it was your stance in some real situation, you might to train first of all from this stance, and then maybe you became to maybe more stable, shooting classic shooting, back side to the target, and pulling your weapon to you, and it was a secondary thing, but first of all it's your body nature. Do you agree with that? Or
Yeah, I think when we're teaching somebody how to shoot, there's an element of realistic stress that will I believe should be influenced and should be interjected into the training at some point, but maybe not at the beginning stages. If somebody is relatively new to shooting, I would try to get them as relaxed as possible so they can understand the fundamentals. Once they're pretty dialed in with the fundamentals, then we would start to add some realism through, reality-based training or something that's going to put some pressure on them. And what you'll notice is you're absolutely right. Your body will change. So, like, I'll be completely honest with you. The first time that I got shot at, what I thought I was going to do and what I actually did was very different. And you're absolutely right. I got really small, my shoulders crunched together, and if I could hide behind a pebble,
like you fight in stand, like you
very
in
similar.
fight.
Yeah. So sometimes people say, well, why don't you train people how to shoot that way? I believe that my reasoning is I believe that it is not sustainable. So for us to stay in a crouched stance and we're tense, that means that we are not mobile. In order for us to move, we need to be relaxed so our shoulders can move. That's why I put more emphasis on relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your posture, because when bullets start flying, there's going to be a moment of tense, but then we have to come out of that. We have to train ourselves to come
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
so we can move from left to right or forward. Because it's very difficult to run, when you're super tense. So that's the main reason why. Yeah.
In my first fight, I load two tracers into the middle of the magazine, two tracers at the end. Then I think that I could see the tracers and can switch the magazine in right moment, but I couldn't see nothing.
Yeah.
It was in we was in ambush, and guys come through us, and I start shooting, and enemy even doesn't know that we caught them. But even in this unstressful situation, I can see the traces. Only when I pull the trigger 5 or 6 times, I understanding that, well, I need to reload.
Yeah.
So yeah, stress are have a big influence on our shooting
Oh, very,
abilities.
very much. Stress will influence our decision making, and it'll also influence our tactical understanding of a situation for sure. Stress is it's a good thing. I think stress is a good thing. I wouldn't put a negative connotation on stress because it helps drive us and helps us to want to be sharp. But the reality of stress is fine motor skills will start to fall apart. What we hear, we may not hear certain things that are being yelled at us. Visual acuity under stress, we're sharp, but there's
Mhm.
there are so many things that need to be focused on. Just based on science, we know we can only focus on one thing at a time. So the reality is stress will have an effect on how we perform for sure. Therefore, when we're training, in my opinion, when we're training, the crawl, walk, run algorithm of processing at the beginning, nice and slow so people understand it. Once they get the understanding down, then add some speed and then add active resistance in no other order. Because if we add active resistance to somebody who's learning a new skill too soon, their the trajectory of how they learn and how well they learn it will be faltered for sure. So that's the way I look at it.
Mhm.
Crawl, walk, run, but active resistance in training where you put the student or the relatively new soldier under some realistic stress as best as possible. Then you get to see body mechanics, and then you get to see how reactions will come to fruition and how delayed decision making will sometimes be.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. And another question, as I understand, you was into the special forces, but before you are in army.
Yeah,
So my second question about are you see the what are the big differences between army education in meaning of shooting special forces and civilian? You working with civilian guy now, yeah? I
right.
understand, right?
Yep.
So what for you the main differences between these categories of people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're right. I started my career with the PPCLI. So I was a conventional regular army soldier with the infantry here in Canada. And then I went to the special forces where I became an assaulter with Joint Task Force 2. And now since retiring, I provide training for law enforcement, for military, and for the general public. And there are some differences with not just shooting abilities, but also understanding of what's important. For an example, when I was with the PPCLI, so my conventional years, we had some really good firearms instructors, and we had some poor firearms instructors. What I found was a fault um, was trying to provide training for the masses, so large group sizes, and there was an overemphasis on safety and an underemphasis on tactical application. So how to really be good with the firearm was a second thought, where safety was the number one. So much so that it was, and I agree with safety. Firearm safety is important. I'm not suggesting for a second that it's not important, but I found that the approach that a lot of conventional force firearms instructors took was this infantry soldier, he doesn't know what he's doing, so we're going to wrap him in bubble wrap and we're going to overload him with how important safety is. And then maybe later on we'll think about teaching some tactics. That's the way I felt like that's the way I received it. And there was moments and opportunities that were missed or wasted where we had ammunition, we had the firearms, we had access to the range. Good training could have been executed, but instead it was, put a few holes in paper. Once you're good, it's a check in the box. You're safe, and that's it. That was the day. So then when I went to the special forces, very, very different, where yes, safety is still very, very important, but the amount of instructor to student ratio and the amount of um, skill transfer and knowledge transfer to the soldier was amplified by 10, because they want you to not understand, want you to not only understand safety. Yes, that safety is important, but how to utilize your firearm and how to be really effective in a variety of situations, under stress, in calm situations, close range, far range. How can you utilize that firearm? So the mentality and the approach was very different with JTF2, for example, than it was with PPCLI. And then as I'm transitioning
Uh,
for the, yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Could you agree that in regular army the firearm are not so important like for special forces? because in big army we have armory, we have missiles, we have mortars, and the special forces are more focused on close combat. On if you have a recon group, they have only light weapon. Are it's the thing or something else? Or just price of error for special forces are higher than for regular infantry?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think because there are more regular force soldiers than there are special forces, when it comes to firearms training, there's a money attached to that, right? So more soldiers means more guns, more ammunition to train. Therefore, unfortunately, they don't train as much as they should, um, because oftentimes it'll boil down to a financial constraint. Where the special forces, the numbers are smaller, their tactics and training procedures are being polished all the time. So the training is more concentrated, if that makes sense. So I do think that there's a missed opportunity with the conventional forces where if ammunition and numbers are a factor that are, it's going to dictate how much you train. What I would say
Mhm.
is what I would say is be creative with the training. So you can focus on safety, yep, for sure. You can focus on the standard that needs to be achieved for whatever reason, but you can also build in there some real tactical training skills that will help them if they ever have to need it in the real world or in real combat. So I think there's a missed opportunity that could be improved. I mean, it's a relatively simple fix. What would it take? It would take motivated instructors who see an opportunity, and then it would take that next level of chain of command to support them. So if the next level of chain of command was providing some top cover, then you have a motivated instructor who sees an opportunity to provide some good training to some soldiers. I think it would be a great opportunity. And then what you would notice is, I believe, the baseline of proficiency that a regular force soldier would have after even just a couple of years would be infinitely better than what it is right now because they're getting, maybe the same amount of training, but the training delivery system is a lot better, a lot more efficient. So I think they would get better training out of it at the end of the day, rather than just standing in front of paper and punching holes in the paper and being as safe as possible. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, okay. What about civilians? What's the difference
Sure.
for you?
Yeah, what I found with civilians is when they shoot, there's some really good shooters in the civilian world. There's some I've done a few IPSC competitions, not a lot, but a few to kind of get a feel for competition. I like competition shooting. I just don't like the environment that the IPSC competition creates. For me, I just like to compete. So, competing with a pistol is great. But I had an opportunity to meet some really good people in the civilian shooting kind of wheelhouse. And there's some really good dudes, and there's a whole whack of weirdos that I try to stay away from. But anyway, what makes the civilian, or what I find a little bit different with the civilian shooters is they they watch a lot of YouTube videos, they watch a lot of movies, they watch a lot of video games, and they have this kind of sometimes misguided understanding of how challenging pistol shooting is. And sometimes they might become really good shooters, but their fundamentals are not sound. Now, people ask me, well, how can you say that they're not sound if they're good shooters? Well, they found ways because they have the time and the money to get to the range and shoot lots of ammunition. They found ways to get really good at poor technique. So then trying to help them create more effective, efficient ways of tactical shooting, they're not open to change. As not, and this is generally speaking, there are some that are very open and they'll try something new, but under a little bit of stress and under a little bit of pressure, they will revert to a technique that they've been practicing for the last 5 years. Now, who am I to say that that technique is poor? If they're safe and they're on target, then it's a good technique. We could argue that for sure. But simple things like reloading a pistol with, with the use of the slide versus the slide stop lever. If a civilian has become accustomed to using the slide stop lever rather than a gross motor movement like unlocking the slide with their support hand, well, then that's what they're going to do under stress and under pressure. Is it wrong? No, it's a method. But what I'm suggesting from my exposure to civilian shooting is there's some really good shooters in the civilian world. In fact, brilliant, but they have never experienced what it's like to make a decision when you're looking in the eyes of somebody whose life you may take. And that's where the difference is, because that's as real and as serious as you get. When you're a hobby shooter, a civilian shooter, you're shooting paper, you're shooting cardboard, that thing is not shooting back. So the consequences are different, and that makes the shooting very different. That makes it very different.
So I would told that I never use the lever, uh, sidle stop lever, because in Ukraine during war I held shoot, and with me be Makarov pistol, TT pistol, and thing like high power pistol. And they have the different, levers, different things. So if I could, you know, doing one movement in every pistol, it's way better than I choose one pistol and do only for this thing.
I agree with
So
you 100%. That's a great example. The slide stop lever positioning will be slightly different on a lot of pistols. It's not going to be in the exact same spot. I agree with you. So under stress and under duress, you may miss that slide stop lever. It's a fine motor skill. It's not a gross motor skill where racking the action, with your support hand, and it's a gross motor movement onto the slide. This is what I would encourage, because under stress, this is more gross motor. So you grab onto that slide with your support hand rather than trying
yeah,
to find a small little, slide stop lever, which, like you said, could be different on different pistols.
and we have there, modified problems, because in every of my class there are guys with different sound moderators, with different, sight, optical, prismatic, red dots, and I say the one thing. What you would do if your weapon was broken or some damage, and you get the stock AK-74 stock AK? What
Yeah.
you would do with this thing? Are you still efficient with this thing, or you just doing with all your stuff around? So
Yeah.
it's a big problem into our army,
Yeah.
because we looked and at US, at Canadian forces, and every of our guy wants at least look like the GTF2 guys. Even when he just in supply battalion, he wants to look like the best of the best.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we
Well,
have to,
it's interesting that you say that, because I I find, like, we'll talk about pistol shooting, for example. It's become, over the last few years, very revolutionary change with pistol shooting to put a red dot on the pistol. And I can tell you, after transitioning from iron sights to red dot, I absolutely love shooting with the red dot, because the target acquisition is a lot quicker. But because I'm a professional,
sorry, Randy.
yeah,
You say that it's more like sport shooting with red dot are easier, because as I was into the, I wasn't into real CQB situation, but a few times we have training for them, and when the mostly I use pistol when I looking around the corner and I see and I keep the pistol like that, and I see the silhouette and just shoot and run away. So it doesn't, for me, doesn't matter. Are there red dot or just iron sights?
Right. And what I was going to say is, I think, well, I know now that I've done it. When I transitioned from iron sights to pistol, to red dot on the pistol, I found my target acquisition when arms are extended and I'm looking for that next target. My sights were on target a lot quicker. That being said, because it's a piece of electronic and it's something that could break, it could fail, it could break, the battery could die. Every probably fourth or fifth training session, I will shoot iron sights only. That way I don't lose that ability to adequately find the front sight if it's iron sight only. Because I do find there's a big difference between red dot shooting and iron sight shooting. And the biggest difference is just it's faster. With the red dot, it's just a little bit faster. Now, also given the fact that from a combat application, it's your secondary, right? So most often, not always, but most often you're going to have a primary of a long gun type. So to then think about the long gun for a second, well, the long gun's going to have either a holographic sight or a red dot as well. Those principles apply. If that thing fails or gets busted off, then we need to have some iron sights as a backup. So when we're learning, it's important that we learn iron sights, in my opinion, iron sights first and then red dot. Because that way,
okay,
yep.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we came into another question. What for you are ideal way to train for someone?
So when I'm training somebody, are you asking for my personal training or when I'm providing training?
Yeah, I think I look a lot of video. We all look a lot of video from from the mostly American special forces guy. And what I would say, I don't, maybe you don't think that, but I think there are more commercial things, because I think they didn't show really how they teaching before they get into the fight. They more teaching how teaching today.
Yeah.
For example, for me, I think the Paul Hall in his video, he are more showing some basic thing, but when he became to the tactical, it's way more modern tactical way than way in the techniques who helping survive him into the black hole down situations. Are for you, are you teaching like you studying into the your during your career, or you something changed?
I see what you mean. Okay, so do I teach the way I was taught when I started my career, or do I teach a little bit differently, more modern as I went through my career? I think there are some basic fundamentals that I was fortunate to be taught that I believe in, and I still teach those today. I think, well, not I think, I know, depending on who the audience is and who I'm delivering to, I will make modifications to ensure that I challenge them, I keep them safe, but I also give them something as an alternative solution. So if somebody were to say, well, I've done it this way the last 10 years, well, that's good. And it's obviously working for you. I wouldn't say it's wrong. But have you tried this? My approach is, are you willing and open to try something different? And I do that for two reasons. One, if the person is open to try something different, then I know that they have a growth mindset and they're willing to, even just find that one little nugget, that 1% improvement. For somebody, and for the second reason is, when we challenge somebody to do something different, it forces them to slow down and cognitively think about that problem set, right? So they're dialed into that thing. So those are the two main reasons why. So it demonstrates that somebody is open-minded and they want to improve that, maybe that 1%. And the other thing is, by trying something different, it forces them to slow down a little bit because they have to think about it. Now, depending on who the audience is, there's oftentimes whatever I'm teaching, whatever I'm sharing, I'll have a progression and a regression. So if they're getting it, they understand it, then I'll add a complexity to make it a little bit more complicated. And often that's movement. Oftentimes that's, getting the heart rate elevated and moving while shooting the same stage or the same application. I try real hard to avoid not a lot of time is spent behind the gun in a stationary position. Maybe if we've got a 3 or 4 hour session, maybe the first hour maybe might be stationary, and then everything else is with a lot of movement. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Direct action.
Yeah, it's right. Yeah,
Direct action.
that's right. So that's how I approach it. Much like yourself, you can probably remember and recall good instructors that, helped you out and showed you along the way, and poor instructors that, they just, no fault to them, they probably were outside their element. But I try real hard to connect with each trainee, so whoever I'm working with, try to connect with them and figure out what they're really good at, and then figure out the areas that, that I could help them. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that in this war, we have a lot of experience from previously war from 2014. Now it was mostly local things between trenches, and there are many stationary positions when you could fire 3 to 4 magazines from one position.
Mhm.
And now one of my teachers who was into the real fight, he said, I shot just 3 or 2 dues and then run away from these embrasures into the brewster, into the trenches. Run away because they or shoot with assault rifles or shoot with RPGs very precisely.
Yeah.
Return fire was very precisely, and you can't. I see the tactical training when shoot, then look to your weapon, then look around. Guys, first of all, you need change your position and
Yeah.
then do all these things.
Agreed.
So I totally agree with you that movement is a needed thing. And I understand when you say that with different students you are different. One thing, if you have, for example, women untrained, and another thing, if you have a police officer who wants to be the better shooter than he are, and so for you, how do you think how 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 important are physical abilities for tactical shooting,
Very, very important.
for firearm training?
Yeah, very, very important. Like tactical shooting is not easy in terms of physicality. People say, "Oh, the weapon's not very heavy." No, you're right. But if we are moving and we are changing position, so we're decelerating in speed, we're increasing speed, we're changing positions, we're going low, we're going high. Physically, it's demanding for sure. And not only on top of that, with all of the movement and all the shifting of positions and transitioning between being low, being high, we're also being aware of our teammates in our environment. So yeah, the physicality for folks that, and here's another transition I will provide for you for the difference between tactical shooters, whether it's tactical enforcement or military versus civilians. You see a lot of civilians that are shooting and they're not in great shape because they don't have to be. Like they work 9 to 5. They're sitting behind a computer the majority of the day, but they absolutely love shooting. And the most physicality that they will put their bodies through is when they do a competition. And even then, there's not a whole lot of moving. So and I'm not picking on them. I'm just highlighting the realities of what I've seen in, a few competitions that I've done. And when it comes to tactical policing or law enforcement, any style of law enforcement or military, yeah, in tactical shooting, there is a physical requirement to be able to run that gun, whether it's a pistol or a long gun. So is it important? Yes, it is. But also, I'll add on to that too, Yuri, is physical conditioning is important, but so is emotional and psychological conditioning. So understanding how to breathe properly so we can allow oxygen to flow to our brain so we can make wise decisions. Sometimes that gets overlooked, in my opinion. So yes, physical important, but also emotional and psychological is important as well.
Sorry, uh, sorry, sir, but this kid actually. Uh, I named his rocket because he's like rocket from University Defenders or some this raccoon. I find he's into the tank. He
Oh yeah.
was into the tank in one polygon, yeah, and now his beasts are in my house and he just smashed it down. Sorry. So, I'll send to you video just before the war. I take part into the shooting competitions. We haven't firearm for pistols for our own use, but we have a strange thing: the pistol who shoot by non-lethal rounded bullet.
Right.
I I don't know how it explained, but it's very. But you'll see. You'll see. I
Okay.
won't discuss about that.
Okay.
So you say that so for civilians, IPSC, IDPA, or something else matches are good. But in our country, just before war, there are opinions that IPC is the best way to teaching whole military for using a weapon. How do you think in in which part these are right and in which part these are wrong for real military or special forces police using?
Yeah, I think, IDPA, IPSC shooting, USPA, USP, PSCA, any competition shooting is going to be good. And that's part of why I got into it, was to help me improve as a tactical shooter. Um, I think there's some great translations between the two. The way that the IPSC competitions are laid out and the way that the stages are approached, it helps the shooter think about, it's gaming. There's a little bit of gaming. It helps them think about where they're going to change magazines, how many rounds are in that magazine, where they're going to move to. And all of it is about accuracy and speed. So it puts an element of natural pressure on the shooter to move efficiently. So how does that translate well into the tactical world? Well, it adds an element, although self-induced, it adds an element of pressure, because the IPSC shooter, especially if he wants to do well, he's going to be pushing himself. So I do think that there are some translatable skills from sport shooting for sure. I think it's good. Would I recommend it as the end all be all to become a more proficient tactical shooter? No, I wouldn't, but it definitely helps for sure. Yeah, I support it. Yeah, yeah. The
Okay.
the only reason I don't, me personally, the only reason I don't shoot a lot in IPSC is, like I said, I like the competition side. I just don't like what those organizations, the way, there's just a lot of weirdos, man. There's a lot of weirdos that do those competitions, and yeah, I just don't feel comfortable around them, to be completely honest. So that's why I don't do them a lot. I do like the competition side of it. I just don't like the type of person that those competitions invite. I'll just leave it at that.
So, if do you agree if I say that sport competitions for real using of firearm is the same like a sport, for example, boxing or judo for real bar fight,
Um,
for street fight.
yeah, I see what you mean.
So
So, so do I think competition shooting, civilian competition shooting, will set guys up for better success in tactical? Is that your question?
no, if we have a couple, I have a couple examples when the good fighters, black belt champions of everything on the street, they just get punched into the face, and that's all. So, are they bad? So, skills into the official competitions, official martial arts are not the same
No. I
that
agree.
into the real life.
No, I agree. And remember, we were talking earlier about the consequences are different, right? They in competition shooting, the consequences are you might miss a target or you might be a little bit slower than the guy to your left or to your right. So the consequences are not the same. It's very different when you're in a battlefield. If pull around that misses your target by 3 inches, that could be the difference between, you know, dropping a combatant that deserves to be dropped or hitting an innocent bystander that just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the consequences are different, which means, you know, the amount of time it may take somebody to make a decision to pull that trigger is going to be different. In competition shooting, they're trying to shoot and everything is meant to be 2 rounds to the center of the target. Everyone's looking for double alphas and they're trying to go as fast as possible. So guys that are really good shooters, if they throw a round into the Charlie zone, well, they're probably going to fire another round because the consequences are a little bit different, right? Well, how does that translate into tactical world? Well, a competition shooter is trying to move very quickly. So somebody that has a tactical mindset who does competition shooting in the civilian world, I believe is going to be a higher valued weapon than somebody who comes from the competition world and then we try to teach them tactics. Right? I think that transition would be a little bit more problematic for the competition shooter into a tactical world versus the tactical shooter into the competition world.
Okay, so as I understand it, there is such link. First of all, the techniques or tactics became into the war. Then some techniques became into the sport, to the and then they grown up, they changing these techniques, they became more professional, and then back into the army get him going to the another level, and this is the link. Because if you see, I have now guys who studied into the Soviet army, and they have classical sporting stances uh, uh, side into to the, and then I think that who provide new technique to the civilians. It was first of all Jeff Cooper, who was really the military guy who just take these techniques from World War II experience, army experience, and measures him to the civilians. And then it became, and now civilians give the military guys the new stances, new how to shoot, how to reload, how
Yeah.
to move, you know. And I think this is the way how it developed.
Oh,
And the same thing, uh-huh.
I was just going to say, I think you're bang on. A professional will find ways to develop, right? A professional will seek out new challenges, will seek out other instructors that, will give them that one little nugget of knowledge, right? And I think that's why you see a lot of um, tier one operators doing competition shooting because
Uh-huh.
it's an element that will help them develop and become a better shooter. So I do believe that.
I
Yeah,
think they understanding that what he now from competition shooter as this all are way better than they have during their military career.
100%.
And you know the same thing with, for example, combatives, army combatives. Now I see the manuals, U.S. Army manuals of combatives, and I see a lot of BJJ movements, techniques, a lot of things with the wall techniques, and there are all becoming from the MMA, BJJ styles from the civilian martial art, so-called civilian martial arts.
Yeah,
So okay, I understand you. Thank you. That for me, it's whole question which I want to discuss with you. Thank you that you got your that I got your time, and so I don't know, but if you have another time, I have a video on my shooting trainings, and we could discuss about what we do in our army, in our standard army, shooting exercises, and how, especially me, change because it's very funny because I am not army guy at all.
yeah,
I 20 years I shifted from the army, but when war started, I came to the army and say, well, okay. So first time when and I am from the first days I am instructor, and when my commander, I came to him and say, well, we have a shooting range tomorrow, and could we make not the standard exercise, but another exercise? And he say, Yuri, I don't care. You are standing closest to these guys. If they shoot someone leg, it might be your leg. So I don't care about safety or all these things. These guys on 3 week might to shoot into the enemies because there is situation.
right.
So do everything, and we and we do something. So if you have a possibility, please
Yeah.
could we talking about that?
Yeah, we could do that for sure. Yeah, and maybe in the future we'll send a couple emails back and forth and figure out a day and a time, and then yeah, I'd be happy to do that. No problem at all. Yeah, yeah, and
But no, well, I'm now at home, but it's army, it's war, and they tell, and today I'm here, next week we could be in another place. So, but if I staying at home, so it's very big pleasure, for me to talk with you, to discuss with you, because we have some thoughts, but your experience are way more bigger than us. So,
well, thank you,
so
Yuri.
thank you that you share.
I appreciate you reaching out. I'm glad we could connect on this for sure. And I guess I'll just close out with saying, as a firearms instructor, I believe that we can learn from a lot of different people, and we should remain open-minded to trying different things from different people. So, like, I don't want to certainly come across like I'm giving competition shooting a negative view. I'm not at all. In fact, I support it. What I would like to say though is if you're an instructor and you take training seriously, there's always something to learn from somebody. Right? There's always something to learn from somebody. So I
Yeah, there are no words that sporting, sporting shooting are bad. They may be not so good for military using of firearm. For when you shoot to another person, it may be not the best way to training. Like uh, we, it's question maybe more for us because before the war, I would say before the war, we have a bunch of instructors, civilian instructors that says, well, military guys can shoot like us, so we could teach him how to shoot properly.
Yes.
And now we could say it's totally wrong because they can't.
Right.
They really can't because they don't understand in the way and measures and principles of firearm training for the military guy. And I think that second step it was the same thing into police units, because even now we have some problems with veterans, with crimes, and our policemen starting to shoot way more often than before.
Right.
Than before.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, things
And
are changing. Sure.
I think that they quickly understand that if you good shooting into IDPA matches, it's not the same that when you fighting against another person. So it's not about saying that this type of shooting are bad. No, they maybe not fit properly, but it's nothing. It's nothing bad with this. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand you. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So thank you. I very appreciate you, and let have another meeting.
All right, let's
Thank
do
you.
it. Yeah, we look forward to the future. Stay safe, Yuri. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
See you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.